Okay, well, I think we're about ready to kick off. So, welcome everyone to the Transport for New South Wales Multilingual Innovation Challenge. Hopefully, that'll be the last time I do that today. I'm Richard Tubb from the Open Data and Innovation team at Transport for New South Wales. Today's information session coincides with Harmony Week across the country, where we celebrate our unique diversity. Here at Transport, we couldn't think of a better way to embrace and celebrate our diversity by working with our community to help make the public transport experience more accessible and more enjoyable for all our customers, not just those who are fluent in English. It's awesome to have such a great turnout today, and I see the numbers continue rising down there, which is awesome. Supporting our latest innovation challenge. It's really great to see so many people have registered for today. Just a heads up, only those presenting will have their camera and microphones on today, so no need to rush out and get dressed. In the spirit of inclusion and diversity today, I'm rocking the classic work from home attire of shirt, no pants and no boots. I hope that you will embrace my diversity and join me in celebrating my culture. Speaking of culture, even more diverse and with traditions dating back far earlier than even the beginning of the great COVID lockdowns of 2020. And in the true spirit of celebrating our diversity and reconciliation, Transport for New South Wales acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Here is today's agenda. We will be recording today's session and providing the presentation pack available to download via the Multilingual Innovation Challenge website on the Open Data Hub. We will be having a Q&A session today. Please contribute your questions by using the Q&A button below and upvote any ones that you think are worthy of discussion. You can start putting in your questions right now. You don't have to wait until the Q&A session to start. We may not get time to answer all the questions, but if we miss any particularly good ones, we'll post the answers to those alongside the ones we have answered on the Innovation Challenge website. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the driving force behind the creation of the Transport for New South Wales Open Data Hub, Yvonne Lee, Manager of the Open Data and Innovation team. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Open Data and Innovation program and the work we do, Yvonne is here to fill in the blanks for you. Over to you, Yvonne.
Great. So we're a small team within the Transport for New South Wales cluster. And since we may be new to a lot of you, especially of those of you who are joining from overseas or interstate, our agency covers not only public transport, but also roads, maritime, freight, pedestrians, bike riders, and more across the state of New South Wales. The Open Data team was started in early 2016, and since then we have reached 9 billion API hits just this past weekend. We're globally recognised as a leader in the open data space and proactively release and publish data. We host and publish data as APIs and also downloadable data sets. We have real-time data such as public transport timetables and real-time information, and publish data for parking, live traffic, as well as maritime alerts and more. We also try and activate our data and like to see our data being used in real world situations. And that's why we love to run innovation challenges. Today, Richard and our team are here to let you know more about the Multilingual Innovation Challenge. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Yvonne. So why are we running the Multilingual Innovation Challenge? Well, really, it's about the people. We want to make the transport experience across the whole of the public transport network to be as enjoyable and as accessible as we possibly can. And as you can see from this slide, Australians are a very, very diverse bunch. In many areas across New South Wales, the percentage of customers who are born overseas or have a parent who was born overseas would in fact be far greater than 50%. And of course, this doesn't take into account our international visitors to New South Wales when, of course, we finally decide to let them back in. But when we do, we're betting that when they arrive, they will hear from their friends and family what the best apps are to use while navigating our public transport network. With a cumulative total of over 9.3 million downloads as of December of last year, you could safely say that our third-party transport apps are wildly popular. Our customers love using these apps to plan and get the latest information about the network and upcoming services. And we want you to expand that experience to include other languages. To help facilitate this, we have created the Station Names dataset, which resides on the Open Data Hub. This includes all train, metro, light rail stops, and also all ferry wharves and their suburbs translated or transliterated into 12 languages. These languages are Arabic, French, German, Greek, Hindi, Italian, Japanese, Korean, simplified Chinese, Spanish, traditional Chinese, and Vietnamese. Just to clarify, a translation is provided where a direct translation was possible in that particular language, but that's not always the case. Where that's not possible, a transliteration provides how the word sounds in English for that particular target language. Just to note, bus stops aren't included in this data set due to the sheer number of them and the sheer number of suburbs that will be required to be translated at this stage. On to the challenge objectives. So the challenge objectives are: how can you improve your public transport product to include languages other than English? How will your public transport product provide accurate and quality information in the target language? And how will users easily choose their preferred language? So what are we really looking for? Obviously is what you're here today to hopefully to get from us. So ultimately, what we want is a terrific customer experience. We want your solution to have direct alignment with the challenge objectives that I've just mentioned, and it must demonstrate how it will improve customer outcomes or improve efficiency for customers. Product integration. Well, we want the solution that provides a seamless experience for customers in their chosen language. Market feasibility. We want to know how the product will serve its target users, and does the solution have an existing user base? And does it provide value to a market which potentially is currently underserved? And how will you reach the target market of your chosen language and grow your user base? Commercial sustainability. Well, a commercial model has to be clearly defined and it has to be operationally sound. Generally, we don't want Transport for New South Wales or the New South Wales government being the customer that you have to rely on to keep the product solvent. On to technical feasibility. What we're looking for here is, does the team have the skills and experience required to effectively develop and launch the product? How will the team conduct appropriate quality assurance to ensure the solution works as intended in the target language? And also, how will the team provide ongoing support and updates in multiple languages? And finally, value for money. We need to make sure that the solution provides the New South Wales government good value for money. And also, if seed funding is required or requested, we need to know how that solution will use that seed funding. So as I mentioned, seed funding is available. There's a $90,000 funding pool. You do need to state on your application how much seed funding you require, from $5,000 to $50,000. We're going to, obviously, we have to make sure that that particular solution is providing value for money. And as I mentioned before, you will need to demonstrate how that funding will be spent. Here is the challenge timeline. We're obviously at the information session today. Submissions can be made from today onwards and close on the 31st of March at midnight. If you are selected as a finalist, the pitch day will be on Wednesday, the 14th of April. This will not be an in-person event. It will be a closed pitch, and it will be done over Zoom like we currently are today. If your solution is selected, there will be an incubation process that typically lasts around about 3 months to assist in the development of your product and to ensure it meets the standards required by Transport for New South Wales. The time commitments for that, it's not a full-time affair. We don't teach you how to do marketing plans or how to run your business. It's ultimately making sure that your product meets the standards required by Transport for New South Wales. And generally during that incubation period, that you will need to front to generally weekly or potentially fortnightly meetings towards the end to ensure that the project is on track. Official endorsement by Transport for New South Wales is a potential outcome at the conclusion of the incubation process. It is not a guaranteed outcome of the at the end of the incubation process. But if you don't have an endorsed app at the moment and you're looking to get your app endorsed, this is potentially a way to a path to endorsement for your app. And now we're at the Q&A session of today's session. I'd now like to hand over to the king, our very own Dylan King, that is, from the Open Data and Innovation team, who will be facilitating today's Q&A. Don't forget to add your questions using the button below and upvote any questions that you think are worthy of an answer. Over to you, Dylan.
Thanks, Bill Richard. Hi, everybody out there. Welcome to the Q&A section. I'd like to introduce the rest of the panel who's going to be coming along. Obviously, Yvonne Lee, who's the manager of the team who you've met earlier. Richard Tubb, our MC and announcer. David Phillips, who's the Open Data Enablement Lead. And Terence Koo, our business analyst. So I think we've got a really good coverage of all the areas, both technical and practical, that you'll need for this Q&A. So please, any burning questions that you've got, put them forward and we'll see if we can answer them as best as possible. Anything we can't answer today, we'll put up on the Open Data Hub and answer within the next 48 hours. So what have we got? Thank you, Warren. Warren, what architectures have been used to develop transport apps? Maybe flick that one off to Dave.
I mean, that's a pretty open-ended question. It would depend on what product you're looking at. I know as far as the transport apps we work with, they're usually using our data off the Open Data Hub, either the GTFS data we have, combining all that, building their own model into a database on a server somewhere and serving that out to the public, or have trip planner APIs which can field queries more directly than that, so you don't have to build your own model. And I think that's what that question's getting at.
Great. And let us know in the comments as well there if you need any more detail on that one, Warren. But other than that, we'll move along. So the next one we've got upvoted here is from Gary Manstead. Do you need a product already in market, or are you able to apply with just an idea? Yvonne.
Yeah, so our intent is always to have a product that is already in existence as much as possible, because you know, as a consumer, I last want another app. However, we will consider any new build, but keep in mind we're only planning to incubate for 3 months, and so the best solution is something that's already in market that just needs some tweaking. But yeah, feel free to ask more questions if you need details.
Great, thanks for that, Yvonne. A question from Ibrahim here. So Ibrahim is talking about the submission specifically. So what am I expected to include in the submission? An idea, a detailed proposal, or an actual working solution?
Yeah, I'll take that one if you like. So ultimately, as Yvonne sort of mentioned, having an existing app with an existing user base is ideal. That's sort of really that's sort of the gold standard, really what we're after. So normally what we'll be looking for is that information about how you wish to add support for additional languages into your existing transport product. Having said that, if you've got an amazing solution that potentially could help streamline that process in terms of you know, potentially creating something else to assist other developers, or if you've got an idea where you think that it's currently underserviced, we definitely wouldn't. We definitely, you know, looking at those applications, of course, as well. But you know, it just has to make sure that you know, the solution that you're currently proposing is able to get out to those people that will need to be using it.
Thanks for that, Richard. Here's one from Kenny. Hi, Open Data team. How long is the pitch session for each selected candidate? So we're talking about the pitch process after the submissions have gone in here.
Sure, that will be generally it's 5 minutes. So we haven't, you know, I would say 5 minutes. is the pitch. So normally we have 5 minutes for the pitch, and we have 5 minutes for Q&A from the judging panel after that. We will normally give you the option, if you wanted to create a video of your pitch, if you don't want to do it live, and we can run that, and then have you live at the end for the 5 minutes of questions.
Thanks for that. Here is one from Matt McGuinness. Is the solution required to be polled by the existing third-party apps by exposing an API? Might throw that one over to Dave.
I would assume no, not required. It's up to you to show us your solution if you wanted to do that. I'm sure we're open to exposing APIs on the Open Data Hub if you have one that you've built. So it could be a solution, but definitely not required. A solution could be all manner of things. So it's up to the people applying to use their imagination.
Thanks, Dave. Next question from Ake. Ake asks, do companies need to be registered in Australia or have an ABN to participate?
I'll take that one. Yep. So yes, in order, if you are needing seed funding, if you don't need some seed funding, great, awesome, there's no problem. But if you do need seed funding or you want to apply for seed funding, we will have no mechanism in which to pay you if you do not have an ABN and are registered in Australia to take payments.
Great, thanks for that, Yvonne. Here's a familiar face, Nick from the New South Wales Taxi Council. G'day, Nick. Hope you're doing well out there. Next question, where does point-to-point transport services fit within this opportunity? Taxis are an extension of the public transport system in many locations, regional areas, as well as late night transport. Back to you, Yvonne.
Yeah, so yes, absolutely. If anybody out there wants to pitch us an amazing solution that helps taxi customers in a multilingual way, then certainly we will definitely take that on board and judge it fairly. Yeah, absolutely. Be great.
Thanks, Yvonne. And here's got a mystery caller here, an anonymous question. So putting it simply, do you want the Transport New South Wales applications translated? Richard might take that one.
No, so no. so if you're talking about our own apps like the Apple Travel app that we have, no, we're not looking at getting that translated. So really what we're looking at is existing third-party apps, transport apps, and improving the language options or adding additional languages to those apps to better support those communities.
Okay, here's a question from Paul. G'day, Paul. What ways can people communicate with Transport for New South Wales to ask them questions about their journey planning, e.g. Facebook Messenger, SMS, web chat, etc.? That might be a good one for Yvonne.
Yes, so we do have a number of different mechanisms. Our .info website, so transportnsw.info website, has a lot of information, obviously only in English at this stage. We do have bots already in Facebook and I believe Twitter. So there's our own Opal Travel app, for example. So there are a number of different mechanisms as well as normal feedback. So we've got a Feedback to Go app as well as feedback available on our website and inside Opal Travel app. So many mechanisms, but only in English.
Great. Here's a question from John. Can you please provide more details on what the application consists of? Is it a document plus video? Richard, that might be a good one for you.
So it's just literally a form that you'll fill out. So there's no videos required or anything like that. Literally, you can just basically enter the form for the first round. Then we will evaluate those particular responses and create a short listing from those. And then at that point, if you are chosen to proceed, then you will be invited to pitch, in which you can create a video at that point. If you wish to create a video for your application, you could send through a link for us to view that. It's definitely not required. And and we will be evaluating every pitch sort of on the merit of the information that's been sent to us. So yeah, so it's not required.
Thanks, Richard. Here's one from Cervantes. Cervantes asks, wondering whether the challenge is about the language solution or transportation system with various language tools. Now, that one's a little bit unclear, but I think I might throw that to Yvonne. I think that's talking about, what we're focusing on in terms of the types of solutions we're looking for.
So our goal is to help our customers. So if you want to do a language solution or you want to do something else, that is fine. But our judging criteria is fairly clear, is that we're trying to help our customers in their more familiar language. I would say not necessarily native language, but whatever language they're most familiar with, rather than having them rely on English. We want to be to take our services and make it more familiar for everybody.
Question from Tim. How will Transport for New South Wales ensure the translations being provided are accurate, appropriate, and meet government requirements?
That is a very, very good question. So we've actually engaged with an external language translation company that has provided the translations for us. So that is all they do. So they were the ones who translated and transliterated all the stop and station names and suburb names that we currently have on there. So if there's any issues, then we take it up with them directly. But yeah.
This might be more about the app. So let cover the app or product that they produced as part of the challenge, how that would be tested.
Sorry, yes, okay, yep, good point. Okay, so what we would do is we do some testing. So we do actually do external testing of the solution as a part of the incubation process. And as a part of that, we have multilingual testing done on those apps. So to ensure that it makes sense, obviously in the target language or languages.
Thanks for that, guys. I've got more of a statement than a question, but I'll read out this statement from Anatoly Corp. I'm not sure whether that's a corporation or a person, but a question goes along the lines of, I run Best Map and the URL's there. And we have data from 15,000 cities, ready to use, app users with HQ in San Fran, teams in US, Europe, and Russia. We can help with translation to Russian language and integrate data you already have because we were interested in it from day one. I think what we want to answer here is really what the geographic focus and the language focuses are for the apps that, or the products that, will come out of the trial. And I think that I'll throw that one over to Richard to respond to that one.
Yeah, so look, I was expecting sort of a question relating to which languages should we use. So if you have a look at there is some more detailed information on the frequently asked questions on the website. But obviously we do have the 12 languages that we have already translated. And so they would be the priorities into picking from those. In terms of which languages from those that you should prioritize, my response would be to ensure it's the ones that you can best support. So if you've got team members, for example, like this one, for example, where they can read a particular language, can understand it, and can ensure that you have various measures of quality control regarding that language, that is the language you should choose. So that is choosing it and supporting it. The language is far more important than sort of which language that you do choose. Having said that, non-Roman script languages would be more of a priority than Roman script ones. So that would generally be, because the reason being is, of course, it's if you don't have a Roman scripted alphabet, then it is a lot harder to read and understand, and navigate our transport network. So that's sort of the reasoning behind that. But look, having said that, if there's anyone there that is looking at, actually offers translating sort of type of information or services, then yeah, if you want to reach out to us directly, we'd be very interested happy to chat to you.
Cool, thanks for that, Richard. Here's a pretty specific question. This is from Sunda. Sunda says that they're currently an endorsed app with the license ready product with Transport for New South Wales, and wondering if you're already an endorsed app, do you qualify for seed funding to provide multilingual support for that app? Yvonne.
Yep. Hi, Sunda. We know that License Ready is already endorsed by us, but this challenge is very much about public transport and not about Learn to Drive a Logbook in this case. So, but yes, you would qualify regardless if you wanted to submit something about public transport and we deem it worthy.
Yvonne, what have we got next? Question from Jack. Jack asks, is there a forum in order to partner with other entrants in the Innovation Challenge? Great question, Jack. Richard, I'll put that one over to you.
Sure. We do have our online forum actually on the Open Data Hub. Previously, what we did run is in-person events in order to eventually put you in contact with other potential participants in terms of producing a joint submission. We would suggest that if you wanted to reach out on the forum, that you can do so through the forum mechanism, but we won't be running particular either online or in-person events in terms of collaboration with other parties.
Yeah, Jack, I just might want to add something here because we're governed by government procurement type things. We are unable to facilitate any introductions, just so you know. So, but feel free to reach out to people already on the forum as you would normally. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. And we've got a couple of questions from Warren that are kind of related, so I'll just try and get those done in the one. Talking about whether the scripting languages are largely web-based, number one, and the second part of that is the current language data set just a data set, not a database? I'll flick that one over to Dave.
If you need some help getting started with using our data, we have some helpful resources on Open Data Hub. There's a Get Started page, and there's also a section about using our data to build an app. So we can post those links as part of the answers to that on the website if you need more resources. At the moment, our language data sets, yes, there are a bunch of Excel spreadsheets at the moment on the Open Data Hub.
So, sorry, I just want to touch on the first question. Is about the scripting language. So this is largely your solution. So you can use any scripting language that you want to build your solution. We're taking the idea, we're taking the solution after our deliberation, after the pitch day.
Another one from Anonymous. Is the emphasis of language on the user interface of the app or the stations, wharves, light rail, stop names?
I might grab that one. That's okay. It's a terrific question. By the way, first things first, you don't have to use our translated stop names, by the way. They are a resource for you to use if you wish to use it. So don't feel like you have to shoehorn that particular data inside your app. It may not make any sense to do so. But if it does make sense, then that is a resource for you to use if you so wish. Great question about whether we're prioritizing the interface or the actual, the integration of the names. Really, it just needs to be I say really just needs to be, like it's an easy thing. It needs to be a seamless experience for any user in the language that you have selected to support. So that would mean that all interface elements, so any sort of dialogues that come up, anything at all where there is a language there, will need to be translated for that particular language. It also, one of the requirements of the challenge is that it is very easy and obvious for the user to be able to switch languages. So that may be possible or may not be possible in your app, for example. But really, that's something that it needs to facilitate. So that if you do have a user that isn't generally using it, the English version, they know how to be able to change that. And we'll leave it up to you in terms of figuring out how the best way for you to do that within your app.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Richard. Now we've got another company-specific question. So this one's from Gemma. Thanks for writing in, Gemma. Lingmo International, based in Gosford, Australia, have a licensed translation app and AI API currently being used by a number of multinational companies. Would we qualify to apply?
Yes, so I might take that one only because I would suggest you, Gemma, get in touch with all these lovely people who might want to partner, because we are looking for a public transport related app that will help our customers, because it will be a back-end service that you'd be delivering. Certainly, I would think that'd be a lot of front-end type apps that may need your services. So, yes, you could qualify, but you'd need some sort of public transport layer on top.
That might be a good partnership one. Okay, so another one from John. John had asked a question previously. He's just asking about whether the form will be sent out. I'm assuming this is the submission form. So maybe we could give a bit more detailed instruction about how to access the submission form, where to find it online, etc., and whether you can get it with the presentation pack.
Very good. You want me? Okay. It's all available on the website. So basically, I'll put the link at the very end. There's a link at the end. But if you go to our Transport for New South Wales open data page, you will find a link to this particular innovation challenge, and the form is a button there that basically says, for the entry form for you to enter it. So.
Richard, so a really good question from Gary here. If selected for incubation, are there any penalties, for lack of a better term, for not delivering the product? So how are the agreements set up, and how do people have to deliver on milestones?
That's a really, really good question. So I guess there's probably two forks, or a fork to that question, is that if you require seed funding and if you don't require seed funding. So if you do require seed funding, and obviously, we've deemed that it's going to be good value for money, as I mentioned sort of previously, that will actually be paid in tranches. So basically, depending on milestones along the way. So if, for example, you were to not deliver a product due to whatever circumstance, obviously you would not fulfill all the requirements to meet all those tranches. So you wouldn't get paid, for example, if it's a seed funding sort of situation, you wouldn't get paid for that amount. If you don't require seed funding, then that's probably just unfortunate that the product doesn't get delivered. But having said that, we would hopefully want to know in advance if there are any particular issues that could prevent you from delivering. So basically, we don't want to take through anyone generally who is at risk of not being able to complete the incubation and ultimately deliver a product at the end of it.
Yeah, so essentially the carrot rather than the stick strategy.
Yeah, and also in your application, you will need to demonstrate how you are going to implement your solution. So if you haven't clearly demonstrated that, and obviously you need to do so in the pitch as well. For example, if you don't have the resources or the people to be able to produce what you're hoping to produce, then obviously it won't be able to proceed.
Another one from Warren. Thanks, Warren. This is a common question. It's a good one to answer. Is the challenge open to Transport for New South Wales staff, especially considering if you have an ABN outside of Transport for New South Wales?
I will take that one. This question does come up quite often, and unfortunately, if you are seeking seed funding, we are very unlikely to choose anybody that has a Transport for New South Wales staff association, because from a procurement point of view, it looks really bad if we happen to select someone that works within Transport for New South Wales. There are other incubation and innovation programs that are internally available, and I would suggest that. Having said that, if you don't need seed funding, I can't see why we wouldn't want to have a fantastic customer outcome. So,
and there are a bunch of other areas of support that we offer outside of purely the seed funding as well, through the
Sorry, Dylan, you're just fading volume-wise. So,
Oh, sorry guys, I was just saying there's other forms of support that are offered throughout the incubation process outside of the seed funding, so that can be useful. Okay, another one from an anonymous. This is a bit of a technical one, so I'm not sure if someone in our team can answer it, but I might throw it over there anyway. How does the Transport for New South Wales bot surface on Facebook? Can I ask travel questions to Transport for New South Wales via Facebook? So this might be, you know, angling towards creating a Facebook chat bot as part of a solution. Yvonne.
oh, you might ask me, but I don't even use Facebook, so I don't actually. So I might have to ask Dave. He might be able.
Dave, you want to take that one?
I don't use Facebook either, but yes, there is a Facebook bot that you can ask questions to using the messenger service, Facebook Messenger, right?
I believe so.
So if you go on to Transport for New South Wales Facebook page, send them a message, see what it says.
Awesome. That, Dave. And another one from Warren. Does Transport for New South Wales have a stock catalogue of terminology in international English and app developers must use for their apps?
Yes, we do. I wouldn't say it's a stock catalogue, but there are certain terminology that we use internally and from a public facing point of view. So we do have brand guidelines, etc., that we adhere to for our own apps. So for Opal Travel, etc. And if you become an endorsed app developer, and during the incubation process, we will lead you through that, you know, the terminology we normally use if it's in English. So. But we don't have a catalogue as such.
Thanks, Yvonne. And the final one we've got in here, also from Anonymous, which is a great way to kind of kick off all the ideas that we're looking forward to getting from people, is a concept that they've come up with, presumably during this session. What about using QR codes so that users can pick up their preferred language and all transport info, maps, timetables, etc., that can directly be translated on their mobile phone?
I think Yvonne should answer this one because she has such a passion for QR codes.
She loves QR codes.
I'm gonna let someone else answer. I have no words.
Look, to be honest, I think that QR codes. The issue that you have there is actually how do you put the QR codes on the station? And even though we are Transport for New South Wales, getting anything into those stations is very, very, very difficult. So getting anything onto a train, or onto a platform or anything like that, whether it's a poster or QR code, it isn't as easy as it sounds in terms of getting the permission to do that. So that's probably the hardest thing in terms of being able to get a QR code on there. So I would imagine for a third-party app to do that, it's very, very slim to none in terms of the opportunity to do that, unless you go all guerrilla. But I don't suggest that you should do that. Yeah, so I understand the idea, but yeah, I think that's probably can't be done. Just as a bit of a side note, in terms of international visitors and also family and friends who natively speak another language. Generally, it's the family of those particular family and friends of those particular people who live in Sydney, New South Wales, that will tell them, you know, this is the app you need to use, you know, to navigate the transport network. So normally it tends to be word of mouth from those, knowing that, you know, they, for example, could understand and speak English completely fine themselves, but their relatives, maybe even elderly relatives, might have a lot more difficulty. So really, if you're able to target you know, current New South Wales residents that have family and friends who may speak other languages as their primary language and don't have a good fluency in English, that's really the target market, I would imagine. So yeah, so putting a QR code probably on the train probably isn't the best thing to do. Yeah.
Great. We're almost out. Oh, we've got another one that's just come in. And please, if anyone still has anything unanswered, please feel free to keep dropping questions into the Q&A in Zoom there. Here's another one from Anatoly. Thanks, Anatoly Corp. Do I understand this correctly? We'll need to show how we can integrate different languages into our app that users currently use. Show you how they can change a language, tell you how it will help them in our app, and so on. Show you how this integration can affect on our users by using data you already have. Is that correct? That was a little bit convoluted, but I think we got just Richard.
That's a terrific question. I know exactly sort of what you mean there. Look, the only thing, basically what you've hit the nail on the head. If you do all those things, that's pretty much what we're asking for. So, show us what the experience is going to be like. But also we really need to know how you're going to support this ongoing as well. So as I said, we're really going to be looking for, you have resources to be able to ensure that you're able to keep up with supporting your app in that particular language. If you don't have those resources, that's going to be quite difficult, in 1 or 2 or 3 years' time. But in terms of using the data that we already have, that is optional. Like, you don't have to use those the data that we've provided. It is a resource that you are more than welcome to use if it makes sense within your app, for example. So for example, if you have, depending on the type of app you have, but maybe the app that you have is a timetabling one, for example, that doesn't require all that data or something along those lines. So you may require just very, very small snippets of that data. So it's entirely up to you as to how you work with it. Probably not the best example, but yeah, it's up to you to whether you want to use that data set or not.
Right. Okay. Anything else? Anyone else got any questions that they want to put forward? Yes, we have another one coming through from Anonymous. We have a question to ask in coming weeks. How would we best ask a question outside of this current forum? Yvonne.
I need to unmute. Okay. Click your keyboard. So asking us questions, sure, you can reach us in our normal ways through Twitter or through our email address, or ideally put your questions on the forum, because then because what we do normally is any questions you ask, we put it back on the site anyway. But if you ask on the forum, it just saves us one little step, because we can just answer on the forum and then everybody can see the answer.
Thanks, Yvonne. One more, and I think this might be something that Rich will be able to answer, about whether we have a list of the top 10 languages that are priorities to be translated.
No, that's a great question. Well, obviously we have 12 translated languages, and of which, if you needed to prioritize the top 10, I would exclude German and French, being probably the lowest priority overall. But the rest of the 10 obviously are probably a higher priority than that. There are, as I mentioned before, alluded to before, there are resources and links to various data sources from the Australian Bureau of Statistics talking about visitor numbers and which countries people are coming from. There's links to Wikipedia about English levels of English in other countries. So from that you can surmise what probably is the best languages for you to choose. I did mention non-Roman script languages, so as in ones that don't use the Roman alphabet as we do in English. They would generally have a higher priority. But really, the best language is the one you can support. So if you can only support, if you've got someone on your team that can only that knows really well one particular language, because maybe they're from another country and that's the language they grew up with, that's probably the language you should be focusing on, as long as, for example, you're going to be able to support that in the future. So that would be the requirements in terms of my suggestions, I should say, in terms of how you would select which language to choose. Another thing too, we're not expecting everyone to include an extra 10 languages. So don't think that more is necessarily better. If you had 10 languages, that would mean that you need to have someone on your team or have access to someone or have funding, for example, to access a third party organization to be able to check the translations regularly for you. So you'd need to demonstrate how you were going to do that. So really we want to ensure that the languages you have selected won't just be good for the first 6 months, they'll be good another, in years to come.
Right. Thanks, Mil Richard. Okay, I think we have gotten through. Oh, there's a question that's just popped up. Keep them coming, guys. So we've got some more time. So if you have anything on your mind that you want answered, please keep the questions coming through for the next 13 or so minutes. Okay, here's one from John, which keeps jumping around a bit. What do you mean by supporting in the future? What timeline should we be looking at? 5 years' time? What changes are you expecting to be updated? New train stations, etc.
Yeah, look, that is a really, really good question. Look, we don't have a specific set in like a specific time in mind. We're not saying it has to, work in the next 12 months or 2 years, but really we would expect it to be ongoing. I would hope to think at least the next 3 years. But yeah, as in definitely you need to prove how you're going to support that in the future. Another thing too is that adding additional languages to your app may not be on your roadmap and may not be a good fit. And that's okay, as in like you probably, this challenge may not be appropriate for you to enter. If it is a good fit and it is on your roadmap, then absolutely that would be terrific for you to apply. In terms of the second part of the question, what changes you're expecting to be updated? Well, we'll put any updated, train stations and metro stations, etc. We'll put that in the data set when that comes to us. It's probably not the main concern. The main concern is obviously supporting constant app updates that you're required to do for security reasons and for new hardware that comes out, and to ensure that your app remains current and the usability is terrific along that process as well, which may require updates to your interface in different languages over the course of the lifetime of that particular app.
Great, thanks, Richard. One more we've got here. Can someone from another area in the New South Wales government, outside of transport specifically, apply for the challenge?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Yes, again, it will kind of just depend. We do judge everything by its merits. So certainly, as long as everything checks out, it's fine. But if one of us in our team knows you, chances are knows you fairly well, it's going to be really hard for us to make sure that everything is cleanly, assessed. So yes, please do apply, especially if we don't know you. I think is the answer.
So what Yvonne's saying here is don't be our friend. So.
Yeah. Oh, no. Be our friend, but don't be our friend.
Okay, very good.
All right, that's great. So we are out of questions there. So I might hand back. Oh, another one from Anonymous is just snuck in. Please feel free if there's anything, as I said before, keep the questions coming in.
I'll just answer that. Oh, sorry, do you want to read out the last one and then I'll...
Yeah, sorry. This is about submissions timeframe. So Anonymous personally thinks that the time frame is short for submissions of an idea such as this. Can we extend the submission due date?
Oh, that's a tough one, Anonymous. No. No, we can't. So basically, we're not expecting you to develop the product in the 2 weeks that you have to put in your submission. We're just expecting you to detail how you would go about implementing it. And as I said, addressing the criteria that I mentioned earlier, and sort of covering the more or less what we're looking for. That I had previously mentioned. So we're not asking you to develop anything whatsoever during that time. We'd prefer it probably if you didn't. We don't mind if you have a mock-up, but really the mock-ups come after you've been selected through the shortlisting process. So if you are invited to pitch, then of course you can polish your presentation to cater for that. But yeah, there's no requirement for you to do anything apart from put in your application what you're proposing and how you're proposing to do it.
Right, thanks. And we've got another one come through from Gary on the business model. What can Transport for New South Wales offer in the way of app exposure, if any?
That's a good one. I would say you should be proposing as though we're not going to give you anything at all. The reason being is that we potentially can give you some support in terms of exposure, but I wouldn't want that to be part of what you're expecting to grow your user base, for example. So you need to be able to prove how you would do that yourself under your own steam, and yeah, not rely on us. The reason being is that it's quite tricky to get media sort of around these things. We often have in the past, but there is no guarantee whatsoever whether we're able to do that or not. And that's the same with any media activity that we do at all. Often we don't know from week to week whether something is going to be picked up or not. So please don't make the assumption that we're going to be able to provide you with sort of media and marketing support. Yeah. Yvonne, did you want to add to that?
Sure. Yeah, so yeah, as Richard said, no guarantees, but we definitely have exposure for all our endorsed apps on the transport.info website, as well as the Open Data website. And certainly when we do have promotions to do a digital push to get information, we include all our endorsed app development products, like all the endorsed products, sorry, in our communications.
Okay, great. And we've got one from Warren here. I might kind of reword this one to make a bit more sense, but the initial question is, I can't see a value proposition for any provider yet. So I might throw this one over to Dave. Basically, what would be the value proposition for creating a user experience in various native languages for companies that provide, you know, for example, trip planning products or other public transport related customer products?
So there's one for this challenge. You get seed funding potentially off the bat. Ongoing as well, Yvonne just mentioned, you become an endorsed app for Transport for New South Wales. So currently we have a close-knit community of endorsed apps who have gone through innovation challenges like this in the past. You get up on our website, you get direct contact with our team and direct support. So if you have a product that you're looking to get up off the ground and get out to the public, we can really help you bring it along. We're testing your product as a part of this challenge. We can get your feedback on our data directly and get things fixed that you see. So you get that extra level of support from our team for your product.
Thanks for that, Dave. And a really good one about process. When will we know when we've been accepted to pitch if we are successful in the submission?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. Ultimately, we'll try and get back to people within sort of 4 or 5 days from the submission. And obviously we're going to try and get back to everyone as soon as we possibly can. So I don't want to put a firm date on that, because once we've gone through and done the shortlisting, there's no reason why we can't contact you directly after that point. So it's just in terms of the time it takes for our shortlisting process to happen. So, but we are aware that we want to give you as many days to prepare for your pitch as possible. So you'll at least have a week, if not a bit more than a week to prepare.
Right. We've got an interesting question from Bevan, which is a little bit tangential, but a good one nonetheless. Are you open to proposals outside of this contest or this innovation challenge?
Oh, I'm married, but thank you very much, Bevan, for asking. Sure, you can email us if you wish to contact us directly.
And we also have a Transport Digital Accelerator at Transport. You can look those guys up. We'll also put that on the Q&A, a link to their website where you can send, get in touch with Transport, and they'll be able to teach you the different avenues where we can work with startups.
I believe it's a concierge service, so the innovation.
The startup concierge.
Yeah. But we will add the link. Yeah.
We'll send you the link. I think that is it. So I think we're all out of questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for those great Q&As. I'll pass it back over to Richard.
Thank you very much, Dylan, for facilitating. And don't forget that applications are now open via the website, and that applications close midnight on the 31st of March. Don't forget to follow the Open Data team on Twitter at DataTFNSW. And this now concludes today's Multilingual Innovation Challenge information session. Thank you all very much for coming. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the submissions coming through. Take care. This is Richard Tubb and the Open Data team signing off. Over and out.